Hello everyone and welcome to the next video in the 9 SJS Employment Insights series. I am Louise Quigley and I'm joined today by my colleague Amy Smith. Employment Insights is a series of videos on topical issues in employment law brought to you by the barristers in the 9 SJS team. We focus on the questions you want answering. Please keep sending us your questions via employmentinsights@9sjs.com. These videos are covered by the terms and conditions on screen at the beginning and end of the video. As always, if you would like specific advice from a member of our team on this issue or anything else, then please do contact the clerks directly via telephone or email.
So today's video is on maternity, paternity and adoption and how it interacts with furlough. We don't intend to go through the foundations of the law in this area, but if you do require further information or more detailed advice, please don't hesitate to get in touch. So we understand that this will be an uncertain time for many parents out there, and further that employers will be trying to do their best by their employees who are on such leave right now, despite the lack of clarity. We therefore hope that we can provide some answers to help. So question number 1. Can an employee on maternity leave be furloughed? And the answer to that is yes. The government has now made it clear that you can be both on maternity leave and be furloughed at the same time. However, if this is the case, you can only claim your statutory maternity pay or any contractually enhanced maternity pay. Financially, you could be better off if you returned to work and were furloughed. You would then be entitled to 80% of your normal remuneration and not 80% of your SMP, etc.
So if you're already on maternity leave and do want to be furloughed and come back early, in order to do this, you're going to need the consent of your employer. You need to give notice that you wish to end your maternity leave and return to work. So 8 weeks, then you have the right to come back. But if you want to come back before then, the notice period can be waived, but that requires the agreement of your employer. So important consideration is also the fact that if you do go on to furlough leave and end your maternity, you do not have the right to go back on maternity leave if the furlough period ends earlier than you were expecting. So you do run the risk of being furloughed and then having to come back to work before you were ready. So do bear that in mind. However, there's also a statutory minimum of 2 weeks maternity leave, so you can't be furloughed for the whole period. So moving on to question number 2, are allowances and pay protected during the furlough period? Are they affected by it?
So they are protected now, and I'm going to give you the name of the regulations. Get ready. It's the briefly named maternity allowance, statutory maternity pay, statutory paternity pay, statutory adoption pay, statutory shared parental pay, and statutory parental bereavement pay, normal weekly earnings, etc. Coronavirus Amendment Regulations 2020. And those regulations guarantee that statutory maternity pay and all those others as per the title will not be affected if an employee is furloughed.
So this is actually a really positive change and only came in at the end of last week, and is a response to concerns many had that if you were furloughed, then that would affect your calculation period. And most employers were advising, yes, it would. And so your SMP calculation or any of the other allowances would go down. But now that's not the case, and the government has responded to those concerns. But there are some conditions. So the regulations only apply where, firstly, the employee is a furloughed employee. Secondly, the employer has claimed and is in receipt of the financial support under the CJRS scheme. Thirdly, that the employee's earnings are lower than they would otherwise have been as a result of that employee being a furloughed employee. And fourthly, it only applies to leave that happens after the 25th of April. But that's going to be most people waiting to go on maternity leave or any of the other types in due course. So good news all round on that one.
So question number 3, The final question we're going to answer, and this one is a little bit more tricky because in recent weeks, the issue of health and safety of pregnant workers has become an understandably more high-profile issue, with employers and employees questioning what can or should be done to ensure their safety. So, can an employer require a pregnant woman to attend work or not? And at a basic level, yes. However, in practice, it's not a straightforward answer, and we are aware that this is causing employers and employees difficulties alike. At present, pregnant women are deemed in the vulnerable category, and only those who have significant heart conditions are in the shielding categories. Consequently, there's no government requirement for pregnant women to stay at home, nor is there an automatic right to be furloughed. The guidance remains that all pregnant women should practice social distancing wherever possible, including in the workplace.
The issue of the ability to socially distance is causing a lot of difficulty. And one organisation which has put out some advice, which they've deemed called Occupational Advice for Employers and Pregnant Women, is the Royal College of Gynaecologists and Obstetricians. Now, firstly, this is not a source of employment law, it's guidance only. And that advice is seeking to draw a distinction between women in their first and second trimesters and those in the third trimester, and suggest what they can or can't do in terms of roles. Now, while helpful to a certain extent, please be aware this is not a substitute for legal advice, and it has and is being challenged still. So it's already been revised 3 times as a result of successful lobbying. And I should also say that I am one of the co-signatories to an open letter to Matt Hancock, along with a number of other female barristers, seeking the government to clarify the position in respect of pregnant women in the current crisis, and to remove the unhelpful distinction that the RCOG has drawn.
So turning to the practicalities, COVID-19 has not changed existing obligations and statutory rights. However, it has created a new acute risk that requires urgent resolution and made it potentially easier for employers to fall foul of their obligations. So from an employer perspective, there will be for most an obligation to renew or update a risk assessment pursuant to the Management of Health and Safety at Work regulations. The risk of contracting COVID-19 will inevitably be a factor for all non-home working roles and give rise to, first, an obligation to vary conditions and hours of work, and secondly, if adjustments cannot be made, to offer suitable alternative work or suspend pursuant to Section 67 of the Employment Rights Act 1996 on full pay.
Now, clearly, that doesn't mean that all pregnant women have the right to be suspended on full pay during the pandemic, but for certain workplaces, that may be a conclusion that is reached. We would encourage both employees and employers to seek specific legal advice if they are concerned about this issue. And also, whilst not commonly associated with pregnant women, Section 44(1)(d) of the Employment Rights Act may also become relevant. So if an employee refuses to attend work, if they reasonably believe that there is a serious and imminent risk to their health and safety, which they could not reasonably be expected to avoid, they can go home and not be treated any differently. So if an employer withholds pay, that may give rise to a detriment claim. And this is clearly a subjective test. And so we would encourage advice to be taken in those instances as well.
So it may be that the use of furlough could provide a practical solution, but this still remains discretionary. So consultation will be required and care should be taken to not simply select on the grounds of pregnancy or maternity and risk a discrimination claim. So that's all we have time for today. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. We hope you found it useful. So please keep sending in your questions to employmentinsights@9sjs.com, and the team will be posting a new video soon. Thank you.